Before you joined the FBI, you railed against it for covering up Jeffrey Epstein's human trafficking ring. Let me refresh your memory with this clip.
It has Epstein's list. They're sitting on it. That doesn't seem like something you should do. You're protecting the world's foremost predator. That seems like an evil thing to do, regardless of who may be embarrassed in the release of that list. Why is the FBI protecting the greatest pederast, the largest scale pederast in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list.
So you finished that December 2023 interview with a challenge to the FBI and harsh words for Republicans in Congress for not getting the Epstein files out to the public. You can see this clip.
Boy pants, and let us know who the pedophiles are.
Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are, you said. You emphasized that the president and FBI director each had complete authority to release Epstein's client list. You said Epstein's black book is under the, quote, direct control of the director of the FBI. Look at this clip.
This is way off the topic, but who has Jeffrey Epstein's
black book?
Black book.
FBI.
But who? That is, I mean, there's...
Oh, that's under direct control of the director of the FBI.
All right, so you were sworn in as director more than 200 days ago. Now the black book is under your direct control. So why haven't you released the names of Epstein's co-conspirators in the rape and sex trafficking of young women and girls?
The Rolodex, which is what everybody colloquially refers to as the Black Book, has been released.
Oh, no, you're talking about what the journalist got 5 years ago? No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about what you were talking about there.
That's
the black
exactly
book
what
under the direct control of the FBI director.
We have released more material than anyone else before. The Biden administration, Obama administration had the exact opportunities to release this material, and they never did. And if you are selling the men and women of the FBI, we're not going after child predators. Hang on, you said we're not going after child predators. 1,500 child predators arrested this year, 35% increase.
I'll reclaim my time.
4,700 child victims
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to
found.
reclaim my time if you could instruct the witness.
It was one of those rare moments when the room falls silent, not because someone shouted, but because a simple question landed so precisely that no one had an answer. Thomas Massie didn't accuse anyone. He didn't pound the table or promise to crack some hidden code. He simply stood, calmly submitted several documents into the congressional record, listed who and what they involved, and then asked the FBI director a straightforward question that instantly shifted the room's energy. Have you actually reviewed all of it? And that's where it gets fascinating. The answer wasn't a clear yes. It wasn't an outright no either. It hovered somewhere in between, tangled in procedure, jurisdiction, and bureaucratic language. That very uncertainty is exactly why this exchange matters far more than the headlines suggest.
So I've got 4 documents I'd like to introduce into the record. The first one is Jeffrey Epstein's 6 story played out for years in plain sight. And Acosta is quoted in here saying, "I was told Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone." The second document is entitled What Epstein's Bodyguard Warned About His CIA Connections. The third document is from Fox Digital. It's titled Epstein's Private Calendar Reveals Planned Meetings with Obama Admin Official CIA Chief. And the last document is Wall Street Journal article that highlights Ehud Barak's 36 meetings with Jeffrey Epstein. He was the former Prime Minister of Israel and head of military intelligence for Israel. Director Patel, I watched some of your Senate hearing yesterday when Senator Kennedy asked you, you've seen most of the files, who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these women to besides himself? You replied, according to the transcript, there is no credible information that he trafficked them to anyone else. You also said somewhere in the hearing and here today that the problem is that the case files are constrained by limited search warrants from 2006 to... Have you launched any investigation?
Indictment.
So is the loophole here, or is it your assertion that these victims aren't credible, that the 302s maybe didn't produce credible statements that rise to a probable cause?
It's not my assertion, sir. It's the assertion of 2 different United States attorney's offices from 3 separate administrations who investigated those same materials in lifetime.
Are the 302 documents in the FBI's possession?
They reviewed all that, yes, sir.
And so have you reviewed those 302 documents where the victims name the people who victimized them?
If I personally know, but the FBI has.
So how can you sit here and in front of the Senate and say there are no names?
I said
I named one today.
I said we are not in the practice at the Department of Justice and FBI of releasing victims' names. That is not what we do. We are also not in the habit of releasing incredible information. That's not what we do. But multiple authorities have looked at the entirety of what we have.
Okay, I got to move on here. Were you present when the AG had the White House event when she released the binders to the social media influencers?
I was, yes.
So if you're willing to meet with social media influencers who stood to benefit from the sensational and sad stories of these victims, will you meet with the victims as well?
The FBI will meet with anyone who has new information.
Will you personally meet with them?
The FBI and the professionals who are handling the cases will.
Were you instructed that it was important to release the documents to the Oversight Committee on the day of my introduction of the discharge petition to release these files?
I don't know what day that was, so no.
Well, they were released that day, and there were victims' names who weren't redacted because they were in such a rush, and the victims are not happy about that. Have you investigated any of the CIA connections? Have you seen the CIA file on Jeffrey Epstein? And if you wanted to see it, would they show it to you?
Well, I can speak for the FBI, and that's presuming there's a CIA case file. And I've reviewed everything that the interagency, not I, the FBI, that was provided to us.
Let's back up for a moment, because the setup here matters. During a live congressional hearing, Massey asked to enter 4 documents into the official record. These weren't random blog posts or internet rumors. They were mainstream reports and court-related materials that have circulated in the Epstein conversation for years, but rarely appear together in a formal oversight setting. Point 1 document outlined long-standing claims that Jeffrey Epstein was shielded from scrutiny due to alleged intelligence connections. Another detailed warnings from Epstein's own bodyguard about ties to intelligence agencies. A third referenced Epstein's private calendar, reportedly showing planned meetings with high-level government and intelligence figures. And the fourth highlighted reporting on Ehud Barak, former Prime Minister of Israel and ex-head of Israeli military intelligence, who reportedly met with Epstein dozens of times over several years. Massey wasn't claiming these documents proved anything. That's the part most people miss. Entering something into the record isn't an accusation. It's a way of saying these documents are part of the public conversation and that oversight bodies shouldn't pretend they don't exist. After another member added a judge's ruling, noting that the government possessed over 100,000 pages of Epstein-related material, Massey got his turn again and went straight to the point. He referenced testimony from FBI Director Chris Wray the day before, in which Wray said there was no credible evidence showing Epstein trafficked women to anyone else. Wray also explained that earlier investigations were limited by narrow search warrants and a controversial non-prosecution agreement from the mid-2000s. This is where Massey slowed the pace. He reminded everyone that those limitations applied to the Southern District of Florida years ago. They didn't automatically carry over to the Southern District of New York, which handled the 2019 sex trafficking case. That investigation produced a massive amount of material, including FBI interview summaries known as FD 302s. And this is where context really matters. FD 302s aren't gossip. They're official records of what witnesses tell federal agents. They don't prove guilt on their own, but they do reflect statements agents considered credible enough to formally document. According to victims who cooperated with the investigation, these summaries include allegations involving at least 20 men across finance, entertainment, politics, and international elites. Massey didn't name a single person. In fact, he explicitly said he didn't know exactly who they were. His point was simple: the FBI does. Then came the critical exchange. Massey asked whether the FBI director had personally reviewed the 302s where victims named alleged abusers. Patel's answer was cautious. He said the FBI had reviewed them, but he did not say he personally had. That distinction might sound minor, but it's everything. When the public hears the FBI reviewed it, it sounds like closure. When they hear, I personally have not, it opens a whole different question. Who makes the final call? By what standard? And how does accountability work when responsibility is spread across multiple offices, administrations, and decades? Patel emphasized that multiple U.S. attorney offices across 3 administrations reviewed the material and chose not to pursue cases. That may be true, but here's what unsettles people. Those decisions are rarely explained in plain language. There's no moment where the public is told, here's why this ended. From what I've seen, that's what frustrates people the most. Not that every allegation didn't lead to charges, but that the reasoning was locked behind layers of institutional opacity. The exchange then took a more human turn. Massey asked whether Patel was present when the Attorney General held a high-profile White House event, releasing Epstein-related binders to social media figures. Patel said yes. Massey followed up with a pointed question that clearly hit a nerve. If the Department of Justice was willing to meet influencers, would Patel personally meet with the victims? Patel answered that the FBI meets with anyone who has information and that the professionals handling the cases would do so. Technically correct, but emotionally, the response landed flat. Here's why it matters. Survivors of this case have spent years feeling sidelined, mentioned, but rarely centered. When optics seem to matter more than genuine engagement, trust erodes, not out of malice, but because distance feels dismissive, even if that isn't the intent. Then came the intelligence question. Massey asked whether Patel had investigated any alleged CIA connections involving Epstein and whether he had seen any intelligence community files on him. Patel answered cautiously, noting that such a question presumes a file exists, and said the FBI had reviewed everything shared with them. When asked if he would be willing to examine a CIA file if one exists, Patel said yes. That conditional language, the if such a file exists, if it hasn't already been shared, is the twist. Those IFS are exactly what keep this story alive. Not proof. Not accusations. Uncertainty. To this point, the exchange wasn't really about Epstein anymore. It was about process, about whether institutions that ask for public trust are willing to show curiosity, thoroughness, and ownership at the highest levels. Oversight isn't meant to be comfortable, it's meant to test assumptions. Oversight isn't meant to be comfortable. It's meant to test assumptions. And that's exactly what Massey did here. He didn't allege a conspiracy. He simply tested whether the system could confidently say, yes, we've looked at everything. Right now, that confidence isn't there. That doesn't mean wrongdoing was ignored. It means the explanation hasn't matched the weight of public concern. Until it does, moments like this will keep happening. Not because people are obsessed, but because true closure requires clarity, not just procedure. If this helped you understand why this hearing moment resonated so widely, consider subscribing. I really appreciate it.